everybody. It's 10 o'clock. Let's get started. Ganana Ganapatigum Havamahe Kavim Kavinamupamashravastamam Jeshtarajam Brahmanam Brahmanaspata Anashrunvannuti Bissi Dasadanam Prano Devi Saraswati Vajebhirvajinivati Dhinam Vityavat Om Ganeshaya Namaha Om Saraswatyai Namaha Om Shri Gurubhyo Namaha Om Sahana Bhavatu Sahanau Bhunaktu Sahaviryam Karavavahai Tejasvinavadhitamastu ma vidvishavahai Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Looks like some folks are having a little issue with logging in, so I had to interrupt. Shuklam Baradaram Vishnum Shashivarnam Chaturbhujam Prasanna Vadanam Dhyayet Sarva Vignopashantaye Vagishadya Sumanasaha Sarvartanam Upakrame Yam Natva Kritakritya Syuhu Tam Namami Gajananam Vakratunda Mahakaya Koti Surya Samaprabha Nirvignam Kurume Deva Sarvakaryeshu Sarvada Saraswati Namastubhyam Varade Kamarupini Vidyarambam Karishyami Siddhirbhavatu Me Sada Om Sahana Bhavatu Sahanau Bhunaktu Sahaviryam Karavavahai Tejasvinavadhitamastu ma vidvishavahai Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Sadashiva Samarambham Shankaracharya Madhyamam Asmadacharya Paryantam Vande Guru Paramparam Brahmanandam Paramasukadam Kevalam Jnanamurtim Dvandvatitam Gaganasadrisham Tattvamasyadi Laksham Ekam Nityam Vimalamachalam Sarvadi Sakshi Bhutam Bhavatitam Trigunarahitam Sadgurum Tam Namami Sadgurum Tam Namami. Shrutismriti Purananam Alayam Karunalayam Namami Bhagavat Pada Shankaram Loka Shankaram Shankaram Shankaracharya Keshavam Badarayanam Sutra Bhashya Kritav Vande Bhagavantau Punah Punah Ishvaro Gururatmeti Murti Bedha Vibhagine Vyomavat Vyapta Dehaya Dakshina Murtaye Namaha. Gurur Brahma Gurur Vishnu Gurur Devo Maheshwaraha Guru Sakshat Param Brahma Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Samasta Jana Kalyane Niratam Karunamayam Namami Chinmayam Devam Sadgurum Brahma Vidvaram Yasya Sannidhi Matrena Sarve Shishyascha Sevakaha Karma Kshetre Pravartante Chinmayam Tam Namamyaham Chinmayam Tam Namamyaham. Let us do the Pratasmaranam. If somebody can help respond to others who are having trouble, I would appreciate it. Pratasmarami hridi samspuradatmatattvam Satchit sukham paramaham sagatim turiyam Yat swapna jagara sushuptam avaiti nityam Tad brahma nishkalamaham Nacha bhuta sangaha Pratarbhajami manasa Vachasamagamyam Vacho vibhanti nikila Yadanugrahena Yanneti neti vachanaihi Nigama vochuhu Tam deva deva majamachyuta Mahuragyam Pratarnamami tamasah paramarkavarnam Purnam sanatana padam Purushotamakyam Yasminnidam Jagadasheshamasheshamurtau Rajvam Bhujangamayiva Pratibhasitam Vai Rajvam Bhujangamayiva Pratibhasitam Vai. I would really appreciate if everybody, the meeting is open about 15 minutes ahead of schedule. So if you can all join in a few minutes early, at least about 5 minutes early, that would really help in admitting people and so on. So Hari Om, everybody. Welcome to our weekly Vedanta classes. We are studying the first verse of Sadhana Panchakam, composed by Bhagavan Adi Shankaracharya ji. Let us chant the first verse again. As we already know, this text has only 5 verses, and each verse has 8 instructions. Vedo nityam adhiyatam taduditam karmasvanushthiyatam tene shasya vidiyatam apachitihi kamye matistyajyatam papaugha paridhuyatam Bhavasukhe dosho nusandhiyatam Atmechhabhyavasiyatam nijagruhat turnam vinirgamyatam. The first instruction was Vedo Nityam Adhiyatam. Daily study of the Vedas, our scriptures. Nityam, daily, because by systematic study of Vedanta, it can be any text like Bhagavad Gita, Bhagavatam, or any other Prakarana Grantha. We will learn about the ultimate goal of life. This Swadhyaya will help our Sadhana Sadhya Viveka active. With a larger vision of life. The Veda mantras purify our antakarana. They reveal the truth. It will instill the discipline in life and help us to overcome any reactionary responses to situations, minimizes our raga dvesha, likes and dislikes. Vedas are our margadarshaka grantha. It gives us guidelines how to conduct our lives, our daily life. Achara coupled with vichara. Then the second instruction was tad uditam karmasu anushtiyatam. We perform our nitya naimittika karmas. I'm freely using these terms because you already know what they are. As ordained by the scriptures, diligently, not casually, we perform our kartavya karmas, as our Pujya Gurudev used to say, in the yagna spirit, with that samarpana bhava, in the spirit of offering. We learnt that we need to do our nitya karmas diligently, slow down and minimize our kamya karmas, desire prompted actions, say no to nishiddha karma. This way, what happens? Slowly our raga and dvesha, they dissolve, leading us to chitta shuddhi, purification of our mind and intellect. Now the third instruction that we saw last week, Tene shasya vidhiyatam apachitihi. Tena ishasya vidhiyatam apachitihi. Apachitihi means pujanarte. Now the instruction is bringing God into the equation. We looked at Upadesha Sara for guidance. Ishwararpitam nechaya krutam chitta shodhakam mukti sadhakam. The upliftment of our actions comes only when we turn karma to karma yoga. We divinize our actions, and we saw a 3-point plan. How? Number one, all kartavya karmas must be done dedicated to the Lord. Arpita buddhi. Number two, performance of all our karmas as worship of the Lord. Dasya buddhi. That bhava, that I am doing it for God's sake, not my sake. Number 3, all karma phala, results, to be accepted as prasada, his prasada, prasada buddhi. And we also said we need to recognize the Lord as karma phala data, giver of results, karma dhyaksha, the presiding deity of all our actions, and so on. With this samarpana bhava, samarpita bhava, what happens over a period of time? Our kartrutva, that I am the doer of this action, bhoktrutva, I am the enjoyer, slowly dissolves. From kartru, I become the karana, an instrument of action, an instrument of the Lord. I have established that universal network to help me in all my actions. In turn, our raga, dvesha, the likes and the dislikes, slowly dissolves. This is nishkama karma, loka sangraha, as outlined in the Bhagavad Gita. No expectations. I told you last week that thinning of the mind reference from our Yoga Vasistha, Saptagnana Bhumika, 7 stages to spiritual unfoldment. In that, the phase is Tanu Manasa, attenuation of the mind, thinning of the mind. Our mind becomes subtler and thinner. It becomes quieter. No more agitations. No more distractions. Our mind slowly gets tuned to the higher goal. Okay? That is the power of that instruction. Then we move to the 4th instruction. Kamye matistyajatam. Giving up the desire-prompted actions. Kamya karmas. Last week we analyzed this in detail. The instruction as a secret to happiness. Because all human pursuits are motivated by 2 impulses. What are they? Revulsion to sorrow, atyantika dukkha nivritti, paramananda prapti, longing for that happiness. That is why everything in this creation is in a state of agitation until it reaches its natural state. I have given you the example of water. When you heat it up, it comes back to room temperature, it is agitated. When it is frozen, it is agitated until it reaches its natural state. Same way, when we do all our actions, if it gives us dukkham, sorrow, we do not want to do those actions. We explored that happiness equation that our Gurudev has given. Happiness is equal to number of desires fulfilled divided by the number of desires entertained. Asankalpat jayet kamam. No fanciful desires to take root in our mind in the first place. That is kamye matistyajatam. The best way to establish permanent happiness is to reduce the number of desires entertained in the first place. We need to be redirecting our thoughts to the higher goal. As a sadhaka, we have to give up, last week we said, 2 B's. Bahya Vishaya, external pursuits, and Bhoga Vishaya, objects of enjoyment. We need to give up the thought, what is in it for me, kind of attitude. Okay? That was the 4th instruction. Then the fifth instruction, papaughah paridhuyatam. Wash away the sins in our heart. We saw last week, we cannot do anything about the results of our past karmas, past actions. They are like the arrows which has left the quiver. We cannot withdraw it. It will hit its target and it will meet its destination. Meaning, the result of the papa karmas will manifest as negative tendencies, jealousy, anger, greed. To pacify the effects of the papa karma, to minimize and neutralize, just like we take medicine when we are sick, to cure a disease, we need to do shanti karmas, dana, charity, japa, tapa, homa, puja. With this, we can neutralize the effects of the past actions, results of the past actions. Through selfless actions, not selfish actions, through God-centered actions, not egocentric actions, these vasanas that have accumulated over several janmas slowly will get washed away. Every positivity we bring in our lives, the negative tendencies will get diluted. Then came the sixth instruction, bhavasukhe doshonusandhiyatam. Until now, he was talking about achara, sadachara. Now he has shifted to vichara. Let us think. Bhavasukhe doshonu sandhiyatam. By now, mind is mature spiritually. It has quietened. It is purified to a large extent. Then that bhava sukha, as I explained last week, that momentary sukha of becoming something. We saw in this instruction, we need to see the defects, dosha. In what Shankaracharya ji is saying, we need to see the defects in bhava sukha. Whenever there is joy, we don't see the defects in that joy. We see the defects in the dukkham. Why me? Why me, we say. We saw that analysis in detail in Bhaja Govindam. If you were not there for those classes, recordings are available. Please go see that. Dosha drushti. To develop that dosha drushti. So see the defects in the world. To develop that pratipaksha bhavana. With that knowledge, what do? I do the vichara. I do inquiry. When I inquire, I realize, number one, all my worldly pursuits have a beginning and an end. Think. They are riddled with pain. It causes dukkha. They dissipate energy because it takes effort to pursue, to become somebody, to becoming something. And at the end, they leave a sense of incompleteness. Dissatisfaction guaranteed. These are not my words. These are the words spoken and analyzed by our rishis and given to us. With this kind of an analysis, what happens? Vairagya, dispassion starts to kick in. Sadhaka has developed a good dose of viveka and vairagya. He has become a sadhana chatushtaya sampanna adhikari, a fit student. He has reduced his external pursuits. He has taken a U-turn in life. Now he begins the journey inward. That is when the next instruction is number 7. Atmecha vyavasiyatam. Atmecha vyavasiyatam. The desire to know Atma, my true nature. The knowledge of the self. It is said in Brihadaranyaka Upanishad, Atmanastu kamaya sarvam priyam bhavati. Nothing is dear for its own sake. Whatever is dear to us is dear only for the sake of the self. So the sadhaka makes a very determined effort. That bold sankalpa at this phase to know the Atma. Gnatum icha jignasu. I want to know the Atma. All these years, I have settled down in my life for that momentary happiness, and yet I still feel incomplete. When we hear this, we also need to introspect and examine ourselves. I still feel limited. The journey of who am I? Am I this body? Am I this limited mind? Am I this limited intellect? Where was I before I was born? What happens to me after I die? He begins this quest, inquiry, vichara. We saw in Bhajagovindam, Bhagavan Shankaracharya ji said, Kate kanta kaste putraha samsaro yamativa vichitraha kasyatvam kaha kuta ayataha tatvam chintaya tadiha brataha. Who is my wife? Who is my son? Where were they before? There is something beyond this sukha and dukkha. Mana apamana. Upanishads are telling me, Atma va are drashtavyaha, shrotavyaha, mantavyaha. Search for this Atma. Once we recognize that all our desires are for the desire of the self, then our primary desire should be to know the self. Then the jignasu becomes the antarmukhi, he turns to the inward journey. He starts to reject the two B's, Bahya Vishaya, external pursuit, and Bhoga Vishaya. This intense Vairagya, dispassion, turns the Jignasu to a Mumukshu. That intense desire, Mokshumicha Mumukshavaha. This is when the Guru Upasatti happens. That comes in instruction 13. He goes in search of the Guru, but as our Puja Guruji says, when that sadhaka is ready with the necessary qualifications, the desire to know has become so intense, Bhagavan will send that Guru in his life or her life. Kathopanishad says, Paranchikane Vyatrunat Swayam Bhu Tasmat Parang Pashyati Nantaratman Kaschit Dhira Pratyagatmanamayikshat Avritta Chakshur Amrutatvamichan Tasmat Parang Pashyati Antaratman. All these years, I was looking for happiness outside and not to the Atma within me, which is that Ananda Swarupa. But at this time, the sadhaka is equipped with the 4 Ds of Vedanta. From Jignasu, he has become a Mumukshu. He is not settling for this chunnu munnu happiness. He wants that permanent happiness. So he becomes Avritta Chakshuhu. He looks within, giving up his preoccupations from his senses. He takes that U-turn and continues the journey inward. Amrutatvamichan. In search of that immortal truth, to experience that Atma within. That is the power of this instruction. Atmecha Vyavasiyatam. The desire to know Atma. Then what happens? The final instruction of the verse 1. Nijagruhat Turnam Vinirgamyatam. Nijagruhat Turnam Vinirgamyatam. He is saying, escape from the bondage of your home. Turnam, Shigram, quickly, immediately. See, the 8th instruction scares a lot of us, a lot of people. Let us understand this a little more. Our Puja Gurudev has given a beautiful interpretation of this in his commentary in this little booklet. The body, mind, and the intellect equipment, as we have gathered our experiences by contacting the world outside, it has created that abhimana, me, mine, a sense of me, minus. That attachment, that comfort zone, we have kind of gotten used to certain mental attitudes that has driven to remain in that false sense of security. Home is that kind of safe shelter. We contact through our senses with the world around us. Bhagavat Purana says, Navadvare Pure Dehi. This body is like the city of 9 gates. That allegory that is used in Bhagavatam, Jiva, the limited ego, lives under the tyranny of our body and its lust, mind and its passions, intellect and its restlessness. But the sadhaka at this stage of his or her sadhana has developed enough vairagya. He or she wants to get rid of these 3 ishanas. What are they? Putreshana, Vitteshana, Lokeshana. They're called Ishanatraya. See, just like we all came here, getting out of our childhood home, we came to the United States to pursue our higher studies in engineering, medicine, etc. There was that entire intense desire to learn. I want to study further. The intense desire for spiritual sciences or higher knowledge is no different than that. So leaving the house should not be taken here literally. Leaving the house means getting free from attachments. This is a NATO policy, not the North Atlantic Treaty Organization. It is called non-attachment to objects. Attachment is an obstacle for gaining that self-knowledge. We need a mind that is free from all kinds of entanglements to gain that self-knowledge. Simple living, high thinking. Giving up these attachments does not mean that we become indifferent to others. Stop caring for others. Giving up attachment means stop depending on others for happiness. If the goal in life is higher, then we need to make this our top priority. By giving up everything else, our Swamiji used to say, this should be your only priority. Because he would say, we have infinite goals in life to become this, become that. Infinity should be our only goal. We need to align our vision with Vedic thinking. We need to align that with our rishis. Borrow their wisdom, learn from it, put it into practice. Only when we close the previous chapter, the new chapter in our life will begin. Now, let us chant the shloka number 1 one more time. That was the 8th instruction, the final instruction of the first shloka. You can chant and mute. Vedo nityam adhiyatam taduditam karmasvanushtiyatam tene shasya vidhiyatam apachitihi kamye matistyajyatam papaughav paridhuyatam bhavasukhe doshonusandhiyatam atmecha vyavasiyatam nijagruhat turnam vinirgamyatam. With that, let us move to the second verse. Sangasatsu vidhiyatam bhagavato bhaktirdrudhadiyatam shantyadih parichiyatam drudhataram karmashu santyajyatam sadvidvanupasrupyatam pratidinam tatpaduka sevyatam brahmaikaksaramartyatam shrutishiror vakyam samakarnyatam vakyam samakarnyatam. Satsu sangha vidhiyatam. Seek that companionship of the men of wisdom. As soon as you hear this statement, the verse from Bhajagovindam should come to our mind. Satsangatve nissangatvam nissangatve nirmohatvam nirmohatve nischalatatvam nischalatatve jivan muktihi. This is that ladder of success from disgrace to his grace. So, as sadhakas on the spiritual path, we have to be extremely alert as to whose company we keep. I told you right in the beginning classes, there are a lot of distractions. We need to be very careful who we mingle with. To cultivate the healthy contacts at all levels of our personality, by associating with the company of the wise, maintaining noble sentiments, studying regularly our scriptures, reflecting upon the truth, so that we are always pursuing higher values of life. Satam sangaha, sadbihi sangaha, satsu sangaha. With satsanga, good company, it helps to stabilize a sense of detachment. Nissanga. The deluded vision of the world disappears. Nirmoha. So when the false values are removed, the right attitude to life is developed, the mind is reinforced with noble and higher values, such a mind is ready for Vedanta Shravanam, Mananam, Nididhyasanam. Otherwise, we fall for everything and everybody, and we give excuses and we reach nowhere. So it is important to keep the companionship of the wise men. Satsanga does not necessarily mean, just being with good wise man or a holy man. We need to follow their instructions, adapt their teachings in our implementing their teachings in our day-to-day living. This sort of a lifestyle will help us to stay motivated, to derive inspiration from their disciplined life. That is the power of this instruction, Sangha Satsu Vidhiyatam. And the next instruction is a favorite of our Puja Guruji. He says this is the most important one. Bhagavato Bhaktir Drudha Dhiyatam. Be established in the firm devotion of the Lord. Shri Krishna Sharanam Mama. Our saint composer, Shri Purandara Dasaru, said in his composition, Dasanama Dikoyan. In that second stanza, Drudha Bhakti Ninnali Bedi Nan Adigere Guvenaya Anudina Padi Kadegannele Kenna Nodi Bidade Kodu Ninna Dhyanava Manashuchi Madi Dasana Madi Koyanna. Drudha Bhakti. See, in Karma Yoga, how do I turn Karma to Karma Yoga? When I turn that by bringing God into equation, I do my actions not for my sake, but for God's sake. To please the Lord. Parameshwara Prityartham. So it is a ego diminishing exercise. In bhakti, I unconditionally surrender to the Lord. I let go my ego and I surrender to the Lord. I empty myself so that the Lord can come and operate through me to spread the joy to the world around me. And in Gnana Marga, I study the scriptures which tells me that I am not this limited ego. We are essentially divine, having a human experience. So in short, all three paths lead us to the same reality. So at this point, we can use our trademark statement, copyrighted statement. Ego is not my amigo. I have to let it go. Our Puja Gurudev always used to say, in all other forms of love, we say, you fall in love. But like we say, a boy fell in love with a girl. But in devotion or in bhakti, you raise in love. Bhakti comes from the root word bhaja. Simple bhaja means worship. Not a ritualistic routine, but true bhajana, seva. Total unconditional surrender to the Lord in love. Devotion to the altar of the Lord. Our Puja Guruji says, an altar that alters your life. There is Saguna, Sakara, Bhakti, glorifying the form and the attributes of the Lord, slowly leading us to the Nirguna, Nirakara Bhakti, to the formless. Bhagavan Adi Shankaracharya ji, in a text called Viveka Chudamani, says Bhakti Reva Ghariyasi. It is an important ingredient, moksha samagri. In Bhagavat Purana, 9 types of bhakti are indicated. Nava Vidha Bhakti. Shravanam Kirtanam Vishnoho Smaranam Padasevanam Archanam Vandanam Dasyam Sakyam Atmanivedanam. 9 types of bhakti, starting with Shravanam. Listening to the glory of the Lord. An example of this person who attained the moksha through Shravanam is Parikshit Maharaj, grandson of Arjuna. As we know, in Bhagavat Purana, Parikshit Maharaj was cursed to die within a week by serpent king Takshaka. He chose to spend that week, Saptaha, Bhagavat Saptaha, where first thing that happened, listening to the glories of Lord Krishna, narrated by sage Shuka, Shukamuni. Thus, Shravanam helped King Parikshit to attain moksha. Then Kirtanam, singing the glory of the Lord. Sage Narada, Narad Muni, exemplifies this form of bhakti. In our Puranas, Saint Tyagaraja, Purandaradasaru, Kanakadasaru, we can think of many examples in this form of bhakti. Then comes Smaranam, constantly thinking of the nature of the Lord. Greatest example for this type of bhakti is Prahlada. Though his father put him through several difficulties in his life, he always remembered the Lord unwaveringly. Harismaranam. In the end, the Lord manifested as Narasimha, destroyed his father Hiranyakashipu, and protected him. Then comes Pada Sevanam, adoring the feet of the Lord in an attitude of service. No one does Pada Sevanam better than Mahalakshmi. Lakshmi ji, she is always at the feet of the Lord. Our Puja Guruji, he said when our Puja Gurudev attained Mahasamadhi, I am not here to fill his shoes. I am at his feet. Such an act of humility. The fifth form of bhakti is archanam. Worship with Vedic hymns. King Prithu is considered to be a pioneer of this bhakti. When Bhagavan Krishna in Gita Upadesha says to Arjuna, Partha, he is representing all of us, sons of Prithvi, Mother Earth. King Prithu used to do, I believe, what is called as an Angarchana, by submitting each of his sense organs to worshipping the Supreme. Then Vandanam, paying respects to the Lord. Akrura, the minister of the kingdom of Kamsa, is a great example of this form of bhakti. When he reached Vrindavana, he saw Lord's footprints. He immediately jumped down from his chariot, saluted to the sacred soil. Lord Krishna blessed him. Dasyam, Dasa Buddhi, our favorite, Hanumanji, exemplifies this. He is a supreme example of Dasya Buddhi. He had the privilege of serving Rama as his servant. Sakyam. We know finally Arjuna is a classic example of this form of devotion. Sakya Bhava towards Lord Krishna. Sudhama is another great example. Finally, Atma Nivedanam. Bali Chakravarti is a perfect example of Atma Nivedanam. When the Lord took the incarnation or Vamana Avatara, he asked for 3 steps. He measured all the worlds in 2 steps. King Bali offered himself as a measure of the 3rd step, performing Atma Nivedanam. Bhagavad Bhakti, that form of Drudha Bhakti, that I am taking shelter in God, that Ashraya Buddhi, that God will take care of me. When he promises in 9th chapter Bhagavad Gita, Yoga Kshemam Vahami Aham. His planning is better than my planning. That trust in God, that unconditional surrender. Bhaktya tvananyaya shakyah ahamevam vidhorjuna jnatum drashtum cha tatvena praveshtum cha parantapa. 11th chapter, 54. Only through Ananya Bhakti a sadhaka will know me. For that kind of a mumukshu, I will give him the Atma Gnana. He says, Tesham satata yuktanam bhajatam priti purvakam dadami buddhi yogam tam yena mamupayanti te teshamevanukampartam aham agnanajam tamah nashayamyatma bhavastah gnanadipena bhasvata. 10-10 and 10-11 Bhagavad Gita. The above 2 shlokas that I chanted, Lord gives a promise that those who are steadfast in devotion to him, he gives them buddhi yoga, the knowledge of the self by which they come to me. being seated in the hearts of all, the Lord removes that ignorance, darkness of ignorance, by lighting the lamp of knowledge. Gnana Deepena Bhasva. Let us stop here with this instruction. The next instruction is Shantyadif Parichiyatam. We will see that after the Labor Day weekend. Next week we will close for Labor Day. Okay. Next class will be weeks from now. Om Sarve Bhavantu Sukhinah, Sarve Santu Niramayah, Sarve Bhadrani Pashyantu, Ma Kaschid Dukkha Bhag Bhavet. Om Asatoma Sadgamaya, Tamasoma Jyotirgamaya, Mrityorma Amrutam Gamaya. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Harihi Om. Shri Gurubhyo Namaha. Harihi Om. Tat Sat. Now let me open it up for Q&A.